Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you're notified every week with my new podcasts on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There is no downside. It's all free. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you'll be a part of an amazing like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. My goal is to reach everyone on earth with eyes to see and ears to hear my message of healing. So help me with that goal. Share this podcast with a few of your friends who may need my help, and it's working. Keep doing it. We are reaching over 600,000 people a month. So please continue to share. And we have my gut expert back, Kiran Krishnan. I think this is his fourth time back. Fourth. He's a research microbiologist and has been involved in the dietary supplements and nutrition market for the past 17 years. Make sure you go back and look and listen at our last couple podcasts. They are such good nugget-filled podcasts. So welcome, Kiran. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Sarah, for having me again.
Well, I always love the fact that God plays with my body. For your benefit, everybody. We're going to talk about optimizing gut health for a strong immune system. And the immune system is everything, right? It is, that is your health. And that means that you're going to go to a party or you're not. And during the holidays, we are stressed. Our body, our guts are affected. And even with all I do, I don't drink alcohol. I try to eat all organic as much as I can. Well, I went to a family party this weekend, did my very best to be particular with what I ate. There's 23 people in very close spaces. No one misses a party. So they're bringing all their flu viruses, the RSV, the COVID, whatever virus you want to talk about is all just floating around. And I'm doing my best, washing my hands, taking my supplements, and I wake up with a pounding headache, gurgling in my stomach, constipation, bloated, and edema. And no, I didn't throw up, but I know my body. And I'm prone to E. coli, I'm prone to salmonella. But what I did is I contacted my mentor who uses the SCIO machine to scan my body to see what's going on, because there's no way I was going to be able to work on Monday with feeling the way I did. And yes, my immune system was down. I contracted some sort of virus, flu-like, but what then happened was just eating a little bit off of my normal pattern, because I can't say no to cake. I'm sorry, I can't. And I had food poisoning. So I had a flu virus, suppressed immune system, and then those bacteria just took over and took advantage of my body. The good news is that with your supplements, Kiran, and with my supplements, the combination, the accelerated detox powder, this accelerated silver, and the mega pre, mega mucosa, mega spore, HU58, I threw everything at it. I was back up and running on Monday. So 24 hours, all of that was gone. But that brings us to the importance of the gut when it comes to the immune system. And you hear that 80% of your immune system is in the gut. Can you describe what that means?
Yeah, well, and I'm glad to hear that you bounce yourself back so quickly. That's amazing. And we'll talk about this. Even though you don't feel the symptoms, the fight is still happening right now in your system. It's just shifted the phase of the fight, right? And we'll talk about what those different phases are. And it's great to get away from the symptomatic part of it. Part of the issue that we have with our immune system is when you stay in the symptomatic part of it too long, it actually starts to dismantle and harm the body even more. But let's talk about the question. 80% or so of your immune system is in your gut. What that actually means is that 80% of the immune tissue in your body is found in your gut. You've got a lot of immune tissue throughout the body that samples things, right? And the sampling is really important because that's how your immune system kind of understands what surrounds you, right? So what is in your environment? What's coming into the body? What are you breathing in? What are you eating? What are you drinking? And then it tries to learn whether or not those things require an immune response. Almost everything that you encounter throughout the day will end up being exposed to your immune system in one way or the other. Almost anything, right? And so let's take, for example, everything you breathe in. Right. So you're walking through, you're breathing in all of these viruses, bacteria, fungi, toxins, all of this stuff. Inevitably, you're breathing all of that in. So most of that will go into your respiratory tract. Your respiratory tract, including your sinuses and all that, have mucus, which is a wonderful thing, right? And most of your respiratory tract has these little cilia, these little hair-like structures. So what happens is the mucus traps all of those things that you're breathing in, the bacteria, viruses, toxins, and so on. And the little cilia drive that mucus up out of your lungs, your sinuses drain, all of that, even your ears drain all into the back of your throat. So imagine everything is you're breathing into your lungs gets pushed up into your throat, everything from your sinuses and all that go in through your nasal passage, ends up getting trapped in mucus and drains back into your throat. Everything's designed to drain into your throat because your body wants you to swallow it. When you swallow it, it's covered in all these immunoglobulins and all that, and it sends all of that, all of those compounds towards the sampling tissue that's found in your gut. And this is how your immune system learns what your environment looks like, right? Because we don't have any outward facing component of our immune system. We don't have immune sampling tissue on our epidermis or on our scalp or areas like that. So the only way your immune system starts to learn the environment is by things entering into your gut. And of course, you eat and drink stuff, microbes and all that are coming in that way. Even when things go through your skin, they're stopped at the epidermal layer. But if your skin is leaky, it's going to make its way through, and it's going to end up getting trapped by the immune system in the bottom part of the epidermal layer, right? So your body is designed for the immune system to encounter things that you get exposed to, and the biggest area of that encountering happens in the gut. So you have all of the sampling tissue in the gut where your immune system is constantly examining what's coming through and trying to figure out what it should attack and what it shouldn't attack.
So then there's this communication between the gut and the immune system. So where does this go wrong?
Yeah. So that communication, let's focus on that for a moment, right? So think of your immune system as a military that has all of the equipment, has all the soldiers, tanks, and missiles, and all that stuff. So it's got everything it needs to defend the area, but it has no general, and it has no plans. It has no intelligence, meaning it doesn't even know what the enemy looks like. Right. So it has the capability, but it doesn't have the understanding of the environment to know what is friend or what is foe. And also keep in mind that the primary thing your immune system is often going after are microbes, right? So viruses, bacteria, fungus, and so on, all these things that can make you sick. All the while in your body, you've got even more microbes than human cells, right? So the immune system is working in the context of microbes, meaning that it is trying to identify microbes that are harmful in an environment that is full of microbes, right? So the analogy I give to people is it's about a 200,000 to 1 ratio of immune cells to microbes in your system, right? So imagine you're at an outdoor concert and it's in a given stadium, and there's 200,000 people in that stadium, and you are the lone security guard that is supposed to keep the peace and make everyone safe in that space, right? And maybe you've heard that there's a rumor that there's 2 or 3 people among that 200,000 that have ill intent for the rest of the people, right? But they look exactly like everyone else. So how would you ever find them if you're trying to police 200,000 people? The only way you could do it is if the other 199,998 people were also on your side. They were all wired into you. And the moment any one of them saw something wrong, they would walkie-talkie over to you, tell you exactly what they saw and where it is, right? That's the only way it would happen. And that's exactly what happens in the body. The microbes, the microbiome in your gut that covers all of that immune tissue we just talked about are the eyes and the ears of the immune system. It's the microbes, not only in the gut, but throughout the rest of the body as well, that are the first responders when something new comes in that doesn't belong in that ecosystem. And it is the microbes that teach the immune system what is friend and what is foe. It's your commensal microbes that alert the immune system to the presence of a dangerous microbe, a virus, a bacteria, whatever it may be. And if you don't have the right set of microbes within your microbiome, you don't have enough commensals, they're not going to provide that intelligence to your immune system. And thereby your immune system becomes slow to respond to the threat, right? We saw this in COVID, for example. And another analogy there is like, imagine your microbes are your neighborhood watch, right? And they're always keeping an eye for things that may seem wrong. And when they see something wrong, they alert the police, in this case, the immune system, to the area. Now, if that neighborhood is full of egregious or dysfunctional individuals, they're not going to want the attention of the police in that area. So even if they see something wrong, they're not going to call the authorities, right? And that's the case if you have too many pathogens in your system or opportunistic pathogens in your system. They actually don't want to alert the immune system to that area, because they themselves may get attacked by the immune system. So we saw this in COVID, and this is beautiful work done by a researcher at University College Cork called Liam Mahoney. He was able to characterize what the microbiome looks like of those individuals that had the worst response to COVID and who had hospitalization and death, and long haulers. He could predict whether someone was going to develop hospitalization, death, or long haul from COVID just by looking at their microbiome, without looking at anything else, right? It was this component of the microbiome called the pathobionts. If they had a high level of pathogens compared to all the beneficial commensal organisms, then you know that when the virus comes in and attacks, these organisms, these pathobionts, aren't going to alert the immune system. It's a 200,000 to 1 ratio. So it takes a while for the immune system to accidentally run into this infection, right? Without the neighboring microbes alerting it. So then the virus comes in, it has lots of time to create an infection and multiply its numbers and all that before the immune system ever detects it. So what did we see, for example, in COVID in these individuals that had dysfunctional microbiomes? Is they'd get exposed to the virus. There'd be this long incubation period of like 10 to 14 days, right? Remember, sometimes it took 2 weeks for symptoms to start in COVID, right? And so that's why they were doing all this quarantining and all that stuff for 2 weeks. So you get exposed to the virus. The virus has upwards of 2 weeks to multiply its numbers so significantly because the neighboring microbes aren't alerting the immune system to that area. And then when the immune system finally comes there and sees it, the viral load is so high that the immune system goes crazy and elicits this massive innate immune response, which is very inflammatory and releases a lot of inflammatory cytokines. And those people ended up going into what people call the cytokine storm. Right. So the response of the immune system was really high because the immune system was now panicked that the host is going to be in trouble because of the amount of virus that was actually there. And often it was the immune response that damaged the tissues, like in the case of COVID, in the lungs and so on, that ended up killing the individual rather than the virus itself. right? So that is the biggest problem with immune function. It's, you can take your vitamin C and zinc and all those things are wonderful. They'll help your immune system function when it's functioning, but the immune system would cease to function if you don't have a healthy microbiome communicating and supporting it.
Okay, I have so many questions. So essentially, it's almost like politics where they don't want you to focus on this over there and they'll distract you over here. So if you have poor health or another virus, or like for me, I may have been affected by maybe a flu bug over here. And so then the food poisoning got a hold of my gut. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that's a very important point, right? Because I talked about how the local microbes, when they sense an infection is coming in, they alert the immune system. Well, how do they alert the immune system? They actually use inflammation to alert the immune system, right? So your commensals are sitting here. Let's say they're sitting in your lungs, and you breathe in and you get the flu virus coming in, right? The commensals that are in your lungs, and there's lots of good studies showing your impact, the impact of flu on individuals is based on the types of microbes you have in your lungs, right? There are certain microbes you have that can almost guarantee you're going to have a really poor response. And so let's say you've got good commensals in your lungs, you get exposed to the flu virus. The first organisms that detect the presence of the virus are the microbes in your lungs. Those microbes go, hey, we need to get the immune system here. So they start shooting off inflammatory cytokines. They start shooting off interleukins and so on. It's almost like they're shooting flares, right? Your immune system is designed to hone in on inflammation. And so when it sees the inflammation, then it knows where to go, and then it shows up to the lungs and it starts doing its job of protecting the host, right? Now imagine if the same flares are going on in the gut and other areas of the body, the immune system becomes distracted, right? And it takes longer to make its way to the lungs. So now that virus that's entered the lungs has a better opportunity to infect for longer, right? And this is where chronic health conditions dramatically reduce the function of the immune system, like conditions like diabetes, right? For example, in COVID, I'll just bring that up because we had a lot of data on COVID, right? Diabetics were 10 times more likely to die from COVID than age-matched individuals that were not diabetic, right? Just having diabetes means you're 10 times more likely death. Why is that? Well, that's because diabetes is a chronic condition that is characterized by chronic low-grade inflammation. So diabetics have inflammation everywhere in their body, right? They've got these alarms going off everywhere. The immune system has no idea where to turn, right? It's absolutely lost. It's like if you have a neighborhood with 500 homes and one home's actually on fire, but all of them are ringing fire alarms, the firefighters would have no idea where to go until the fire gets so big they see the smoke. Then by the time they get there, it may be too late, right? So that's exactly what's happening in the body. This is why chronic conditions negate effective immune response, because those individuals have fire alarms going on all over the body. The immune system does not know how to hone in on where the problem is.
Okay, well, you're talking about diabetes, which is insulin resistance, and most people get insulin resistance from eating too much sugar and too much carbs. What about those who don't have insulin resistance, which most people actually do at the moment? But we're eating the holiday food and the cakes and the eggnog and maybe more alcohol than we're used to. So I want to talk about just sugar and the wrong foods, how that affects the immune system in the gut. But then I also want to talk about the stress that we're all under right now because of the holidays. And it could be good stress, but it's stress. And I think that's what hit me. I went into the weekend stressed, all good. My college kids are home. There's extra kids to feed. I've got extra work to do. I've got all the holiday stuff piling up. And I think it was just this perfect storm for the weekend. So let's first talk about sugar and some of the foods and how that affects the immune system, and then the stress.
Yeah, so the problem with foods like sugar and if you're eating cakes and things that have gluten in it and all that, right? And you're normally not eating those things, so your body's not even used to dealing with them. What they will do is they will cause temporary acute leaky gut. inflammation, right? So especially if we add drinking with it and all that, and you add the stress. Stress is, in fact, one of the most profound sources of leaky gut. And so you can have acute leaky gut. Most people who consume gluten will have what they call transient intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut for a period of time, right? It may be a few hours in some individuals. It may be 1 or 2 days in other individuals, right? Depending on how quickly your gut can repair itself. The problem with that is when you induce those things, you're causing inflammation throughout the body. That inflammation negates proper immune response, right? And so now what you have is this recipe of all these people coming together, so exposing each other to things, right? So somebody's going to be in there with a cold or latent flu or something like that. So now you're gaining exposure to things that can make you sick. At the same time, because of what we're eating, drinking, we're stressed, our body's system is not functioning optimally. We have chronic inflammation, we have acute inflammation going on, and our immune system is confused, right? And because our immune system is confused, the things we get exposed to have a better chance of taking hold, right? So keep in mind, we're exposed to stuff every day, right? Most people aren't sick all the time because your immune system is doing its thing. It's working and it's doing its job, right? We're literally exposed to things every day. Unless you're staying in a hermetically sealed room or bubble yourself, that's the only way you don't get exposed to things that can make you sick. If you go walking around outside even, the air has tons of microbes in it that can make you sick, right? Our immune system is doing its job like it's supposed to, keeping us healthy for the most part. But in a perfect storm situation where you bring a lot of people together, you've got all of these agents that create inflammation in the body. That inflammation negates the normal function of your immune response, right? So, and let me give a quick overview of what the normal function is supposed to look like. So it's understandable why even a little bit of inflammation in a short period of time can negate the proper immune response. So when you're exposed to something, let's say the cold virus, right? You're with a bunch of people, somebody's coughing or sneezing, and they put some cold virus out into the air. You get exposed to that virus. What's supposed to happen is, again, the microbes in the region, that wherever you got exposed to it, whether it's in your eyes or in your respiratory tract, the microbes in that region go, hey, this doesn't look right. Right? The cell that I'm next to or on top of is getting infected. And so the microbes start releasing interleukins, right? And those are things that are supposed to attract the immune system. Now, the immune system sees that and gets attracted and comes to the area. The first part of the immune system that responds is called the innate immune system. Now, the innate immune system is very quick to respond. The problem with the innate immune system is it's not specific. It's good at understanding an area where there's a problem, but it's not very good at understanding what is causing the problem. So what the innate immune system does is it shows up and it just bombards everything in the area, right? Including your own tissue and so on. This is the part of the illness that you feel, right? This is why you feel sick. When the innate immune system finds an infection and starts attacking it, that's when fever comes on, body aches, pains, runny nose, all the aches in the stomach, and all the symptoms that come along with it are all due to the innate immune system doing its thing. Now, the innate immune system is doing that. It's trying to control the reproduction of the infectious agent in the area. And then what's supposed to happen is these other cells called dendritic cells and macrophages come along to that area where the innate immune system is bombarding things, and it starts grabbing debris and presenting it to the adaptive immune system. The adaptive immune system are your T cells and your B cells. Now, what's good about them is they are highly specific to the agent that's causing the issue. They're not going to bombard the area and cause a bunch of damage like the innate immune system does. The adaptive immune system is doing just that. It's adapting to that infectious agent, and then it creates tools that are highly specific for that infectious agent, right? So there's this shuttling period. You go through the symptomatic illness where the innate immune system is going crazy and bombarding everything. The transitional microbes cells like the dendritic cells and macrophages show up. They start presenting what they think is the culprit to the T cells and B cells. When the T cells and B cells find the right culprit, they start producing things like antibodies and so on that neutralize the target and shuts down the innate immune system. Now, that shutting down of the innate immune system, that presenting of antigens to the adaptive immune system, and the amplification of the adaptive immune system all require a healthy microbiome. So if you don't have a healthy microbiome, not only is will the innate immune system take longer to show up, right? Because your microbes aren't shooting up the flares the way they should be. And by the time it shows up, the infection is a bigger problem. But once it shows up and it starts bombarding everything, it takes longer for the transitional cells to come along to present stuff. And it takes even longer for the adaptive immune system to kick in. So then you go through a symptomatic period for even longer period of time. That's why there are some people, that can get exposed to the same exact thing. They might feel aches and pains and all that for 24 or 48 hours, and then they feel fine. But during that feeling fine period, it doesn't mean that the infection is gone. It means that it's shifted to the adaptive immune system. So there's no longer the symptomology, right? So that's what you experience. Now, if somebody didn't have all those supplements and have all the things to support their system, if they got the same kind of exposure with you that you did with all the same parameters, they will likely have symptoms that you had for 24 hours. They'd probably have it for 3 or 4 days and be kind of knocked out, right? Until the adaptive immune system finally came in and took over. So that shift is really important. That shift depends on the microbiome as well. And if the microbiome is dysfunctional, the shift doesn't happen effectively.
So how long is someone contagious? So is it just when they're that acute immune action happens and it stops when the adaptive immune system kicks in?
That's right. So in most cases, in most infectious agents, the safe bet is 24 hours after fever has subsided on its own, right? Not fever being controlled by things like Advil and Tylenol and so on. If 24 hours after fever has subsided, gives you ample notification that the innate immune system is shut down. So it's no longer producing pyrogens. So pyrogens that the innate immune system produces is what causes the fever in the body. And why does your body cause fever? In case people don't know, it's because many of these microbes don't do well under higher temperatures. So it denatures the proteins and things like that in the microbes, right? So that it's a way of slowing down the metabolic capabilities of the microbes and giving the immune system the leg up. So that's why you feel the fever that you feel. And then once the innate immune system is shut down and then the adaptive is taking over, usually 24 hours of the adaptive immune system being in control means that the fever has been gone for a day and there's enough control of the infectious agent that you probably can't spread it to other people.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense why we, with our elementary school kids, we're not allowed to send our kids back to school until after the fever's been gone for at least a day. So that was way back when, before the pandemic, when everything was normal. Okay, so stress. What does cortisol do to the gut? And I feel like it's just back to what we were talking about, the distraction, right? You look over here, and so I can take advantage of the body over here. Talk about how cortisol affects the immune system.
Yeah, so cortisol, is a necessary thing when you're going through the fight or flight response. It's necessary in the morning when you're trying to awaken. So it basically alerts a lot of neurological systems in your body, right? And that's really the purpose of cortisol. The downside of cortisol is that as cortisol is building up in your body, part of it is getting dumped in the gut. When it gets dumped in the gut, and the reason it gets dumped in the gut is because a part of that gets metabolized by microbes in the gut, and then the metabolic byproducts of cortisol go to the kidneys to increase perfusion of water back into the circulatory system, to increase blood pressure. That's an important feature in the fight or flight response because your body's trying to get high amounts of pressure of blood to your brain and your muscles so you can fight or flee, right? So cortisol is doing that. It's going into the gut. Now, one of the problems is if it's in the gut, it's going to make your gut super leaky acutely, especially if you don't have the right microbes to stop that process, right? If you had the psychobiotic microbes like the Biflongum 1714, the Zenbiome strain, that stops cortisol from making your gut leaky. But if you don't have that, and most people don't have adequate amounts of that kind of strain, cortisol hits your gut, makes your gut super leaky. That leakiness throws up inflammation like crazy, like IL-6 and all these inflammatory cytokines. Those inflammatory cytokines, again, negate the function of the immune system, because your immune system becomes supremely distracted. Right, it cannot find the source of infection. It doesn't see the alarms that your commensal bacteria may be putting out. And then also the other problem with a leaky gut and a gut that's not functioning properly is your immune system requires certain nutrients in order for your immune cells to have enough energy to do what they have to do. Right, so it requires enough butyrate production, for example. And if your gut is leaky and dismantled, and stress causes that kind of leaky dismantling of the gut, you're not producing enough butyrate and other short chain fatty acids. So you're not feeding your immune system properly. At the same time, your immune system is completely confused and distracted because there's so many fire alarms going on throughout the body, right? So this is absolutely why stress can negate immune function. There's another reason to that as well. There's a lot of opportunistic microbes in your body that over time have developed the capability of reading your stress hormone levels, right? So what they do is, that's the opportunity that they seek. When the host stress hormone levels are high, that's when these microbes start expressing the virulence factors. That's when they go, hey, the host is compromised. This is our chance to proliferate and to multiply. So then you've got all of these pathogenic organisms starting to multiply during the increased expression of cortisol. So not only do you have inflammation that's distracting and confusing the immune system, you're not producing compounds and byproducts that the immune system needs for fuel and function. And then the last part is, your dysbiosis of the environment is increasing because you're getting more and more of these opportunistic pathogens multiplying at a higher rate. So it's a trifecta of things that really disrupt your immune function. Hence, a lot of people, when they're stressed, they break out, they get the cold sore pops in, they get sick. That's all tied to those three key things.
And that's without eating the cupcake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? We're not even eating and enjoying the good food that disrupts our gut. Constipation. So, I talk to my clients about, you gotta poop 2 to 3 times a day. Think about when babies were little, they eat and they poop, they sleep. They eat, they poop, they sleep. And if your baby didn't poop, it was a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got people going, 3-4 days without pooping. And how does constipation impact the immune system?
Yeah, so constipation is a big issue, because, well, number one, you need to take the food that's coming through and move it through the system at an adequate pace. If you don't, one of the things that can occur is they can putrefy. And the putrefaction creates a formation of all these gases and all that can negate the function of the immune system. For example, building too much ammonia gas or hydrogen sulfide. These are putrefaction type compounds that can occur if you're constipated and if food is sitting in the system. And those byproducts will negate the function of the immune system because it coats and it disrupts all the sampling tissue. Your immune system sees those as inflammatory, toxigenic things that it tries to then battle. And now it's battling this big gas cloud and toxin, production in the gut itself. It's distracted from everything else. Right, it's not dealing with the virus that just entered into your respiratory tract because it's stuck dealing with hydrogen sulfide and ammonia and all of these things that are happening in the gut. And then also that putrefaction byproduct can cause inflammation in people, right? So if you have elevated, for example, ammonia, that elevated ammonia actually reduces oxygen carrying capacity in your blood, and it can cause lots of inflammation. There's a condition called hepatic encephalopathy in liver failure patients who can't clear ammonia well. Those patients have a massive risk of suffering from, a brain inflammation, very potent acute brain inflammation and swelling because of the buildup of ammonia in the system. right? So constipation is a big issue that way because you're not moving the food through, you're getting it putrefied, and that becomes a toxigenic load in the system.
So you got to poop.
You got to
Okay,
poop.
so I cannot believe how quickly this is going. Let's talk about what we can do, because I love how you are realistic. We are going to cheat a little bit on our
Mhm.
diet. We're not necessarily going to eat right all the time. Yes, you need to focus the majority of the time, but you talk about the fact that you want to make the gut resilient.
Yeah.
So how do we do that, and what supplements are you I know you talk about intermittent fasting, so
Mhm.
let's talk about the importance of that, and then what supplements that you would recommend to strengthen the immune system.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'll say I was at the biggest one of the biggest functional medicine anti-aging shows was just this past weekend in Las Vegas called A4M, and I was there I think 4 nights. And every night is a late night. Every night involves drinks. Every night involves eating out, and it's a true test of your body's resilience, right? And it's for those kind of things that, to me, my personal goal, health goal, is to dramatically improve my resilience, because I want to be able to do all those things and socialize and do the business contacts and all that stuff, but then not come home sick like a lot of people do, right? And not pay for it for the next week. The goal there, if you had a couple of things to keep in mind, it's to increase the diversity of microbes in your gut, right? Because again, that's the largest sampling site. The more diversity you have, it means the more good commensal microbes you have, the more resilient that ecosystem is to the presence of pathogens and those pathobionts that really screw up your immune response. So diversity is absolutely key, and increasing the keystone species is really key, because many of these keystone species, like Akkermansia, like Fecalum bacteria, like Biflongum, they play a very important role in supporting your immune system. So what can you do about that, right? So a probiotic that increases diversity becomes extremely important. The Megaspore biotic, we've been able to show, increases diversity, right? So that becomes a staple part of continuing to build your resilience. The second part of it is feeding the microbes with the right prebiotics. So I use the Mega Pre. The Mega Pre is really important. And when you combine the Mega Pre and Megaspore, the diversity of the gut microbiome increases by like 30 to 35% in just 3 weeks. That's very significant, right? And you increase butyrate and short chain fatty acid production by almost 150%. And those are very critical compounds that your immune system needs to function at its optimal level. Again, that also makes your gut resilient to being overtaken by either foodborne illnesses or other pathogens that may already exist in your gut. I use the IgG as well. The IgG is really important because it binds up lots of dysfunctional microbes and toxins and so on. So it reduces the load your immune system has to carry. It's like a helping hand for your immune system on a constant basis, and it's less distracted, right? The fewer targets the immune system has to deal with, the less distracted it is, and it can pay attention to things that are coming in through the respiratory tract and so on, right? So I use the IgG in the gut because it binds up things and it neutralizes things. Now, you mentioned fasting. Fasting is a critical part of it. When I'm in a place like Vegas and I'm traveling and all that, I'm still sticking with my intermittent fasting, right? And in many ways, it can be hard to get your full 16 hours in, especially if your sleep is disrupted and all that, and you're staying up and you're awake earlier than you normally do. But I use actually, as it turns out, your product, the keto support product, because that I have found in the morning when I wake up and I take it within the first hour or two after waking up, it actually helps me prolong my fast to hit at least the 16 hours. Sometimes I end up going longer because it gives you that assistance. It kind of helps drive you into that ketogenic state. And then it provides you that sustenance, and I do most of my workouts in the morning in a fasted state, and that's really helped me prolong that fasted state and kind of fight off the hunger pangs. So that's another thing. And why do I fast? Well, because fasting increases the diversity of your microbiome as well. And fasting does another very important thing. It does some cleanup mechanisms, right? It triggers something called autophagy. which is the body's ability to clean up debris, cellular debris, dysfunctional cells, and all that that can interfere with your immune system's functions. You want the space to be clean and clear so your immune system can see where the problem is, right? So you don't want a whole bunch of dysfunctional, senescent, dead cells and so on all over the place. It also increases mitophagy, which is the regeneration of mitochondria in your system. So all your cells are functioning optimally so that they can defend themselves as well when they get invaded, right? A virus, for example, one of the first things it does is it invades one of your cells because the virus is trying to take over your cellular machinery in order to reproduce itself. A healthy cell has the capability of defending itself against the virus. Number one, by releasing things like interleukins. It neutralizes the virus and the virus's capability of replicating, so the cell itself can defend them. And then if the cell gets infected, the cell can turn on its own destruction so that it doesn't become a virus factory. All of those things require healthy, functioning cells that are turning over and are fresh and are new. All of that is driven by fasting, right? So fasting is a really important thing for my immune system in general. So those are the core staples. Now I take products like Epicor. I do mushroom extracts. There's a number of things. Of course, you load up on vitamin C and zinc and all the basics there as well. But at the end of the day, you can't take enough of those other things. You can't take enough vitamin C, enough zinc, enough of those types of nutrients to overcome the dysfunction in your immune system that's driven by a dysfunctional gut, right? So you have to work on the gut as a key part of it, and then all the vitamins and nutrients and all that will work even better when you do.
So most people go to the doctor when they feel sick and they get an antibiotic. So let's just touch on what is that doing to our immune system?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the antibiotic, if you need an antibiotic, if you have a bacterial infection that's gone so far that your immune system cannot bring it under control on its own, then the antibiotic can be very beneficial for that particular infection, right? But it's going to dismantle your microbiome, which means that you are more susceptible to subsequent issues, or you're more susceptible to secondary issues at that time, right? So a lot of times, and this is where the use of antibiotics really becomes dysfunctional. A lot of times antibiotics are prescribed for viral issues. You go in and you actually have a cold or a flu and you still get a Z-Pack, even though it's not necessarily going to help the cold or the flu. And the doctor is going, well, I got to give this person something because they're really harping about wanting to feel better. And maybe it'll help with a secondary infection. But in most medical doctors' minds, antibiotics do no harm, right? And so for that reason, they're just willy-nilly willing to write the script. Where if you take the antibiotic for a viral infection, it will absolutely slow down your body's ability to deal with the virus. The antibiotic will compromise your immune system because it disrupts your microbiome. And there's studies on this, right? There's studies on people who, for example, took an antibiotic prior to being exposed to the flu or during the flu. It slows down their recovery, or even immunotherapy in cancer. This is where they've done a lot of work on how antibiotics can disrupt immune function, because immunotherapy in certain cancers requires your own immune system to function properly, T cells in particular, in order to go after the tumor. What they find is that if the individual went through a course of antibiotics before starting immunotherapy, the immunotherapy doesn't work so well. However, if the individuals had increased keystone species, increased short chain fatty acids before starting the immunotherapy worked way better. Right. So there's some really key studies that show that a functioning, diverse gut microbiome with high keystone species really drives proper immune response. Whereas if you dismantle the gut, and especially if you do so with an antibiotic, you can really compromise your immune response. But again, antibiotic, talk to your doctor about it. There's times when, of course, you need it. But that's just a general concept of how the immune system and the microbiome are connected. And if you disrupt the microbiome, you will disrupt your immune system's function.
So everything that you mentioned, the mega-pre, the mega-mucosa, the mega-spore, and we didn't talk about the HU58, but we did mention the Zen biome. I take all of those. to make sure that my gut is resilient. And the reason that I am in this business is because of my gut issues how many years ago. And that was the result of my rock bottom. And so my gut at the age of 40, almost 48, is better than it's ever been. Um, and I can see it in my skin and my hair, my energy, everything. And it is all about the gut. We have just a couple 2 minutes left, Karan. Can you just mention, because it's not just about supplements, you got to do a little work too, right? We're intermittent fasting, we're taking the supplements. What few things would you recommend in lifestyle and focusing on the diet?
Yeah, so sleep. Obviously, a lot of the repair and action is going to occur when you're sleeping. So if this time of year, especially when we're exposed to a lot, we're under stress, we may be eating off our target diet and all that. You do want to get enough rest in order to be able to support your system. I also use the sauna quite a bit. I've got a infrared sauna with the full spectrum. That sweating, the detox, the triggering of heat shock proteins. Those are all things that can really help your immune system. Getting outside can really help your immune system. So getting exposure to environmental microbes and so on, especially if you're going on a hike or you have the opportunity to go on the beach. Or natural environments where it's not an adulterated environment. Getting outside doesn't mean going to the mall necessarily, right? It means going out in nature. That can have a very positive impact on your immune system. And like we talked about stress a lot, managing that stress becomes critically important, right? Stress will make you highly susceptible to immune dysfunction and then thereby illnesses, right? And the moment you feel, and this is where supplements really come in handy, right? And we do this in my household all the time. We take certain basic things to maintain immune function, ongoing. But like you did, Sarah, if we start to feel something, even a little bit of symptomology, or somebody was over that we now heard is sick, we hit it hard with the supplementation, right? We double the dose of almost everything. We do the sauna, we sleep, we do steam showers, all of that. And 98% of the time we catch it and we're fine within a day or two, right? And so it can be done. We've had situations where my young daughter had H1N1 flu, and I'm like, okay, well, she's spewing all over my face and my wife's face, and we're trying to keep her brother, who's 2.5 years older than her, from getting it, so that not everyone's knocked out with the flu. And in fact, our doctor was like, "You're all going to get it. It's a very contagious. None of the rest of us got it, right? Because we went hard at it, we hit it with everything, and we really boosted the immune system. So having that good, strong baseline. And then when you start to feel something or you've been exposed, go hard at it. So keep that stuff with you, right? Keep those supplements with you so you have it ready, and you can hit it hard when you get exposed to something.
Especially during the holidays. I can tell you on Sunday night, I went to bed at 7 o'clock because I prioritize my sleep. I wear my Aura ring and I make sure that is priority number one. And far infrared sauna, absolutely, I do that as well. So all of these are tools because our job is to feel good and be productive and enjoy life on a daily basis and not be taken down. And especially during the holidays, we don't want to miss out. I'm traveling. I will be taking all that we talked about with me because I don't know what I'm going to be eating. I don't know who I'm going to be around. And I need to make sure I'm enjoying that little time that I've got off, right? So thank you, Kiran. Everything we've talked about today, you can find at Accelerated Health Products. Kiran, his company is My Gut company, and there's no reason for me to reinvent the wheel when he is on the cutting edge of all of this. And super excited about all of the new supplements and companies that are coming out, and we will definitely be having you back and talking about them as I try them out, and my family does, because they are my guinea pigs, right? So I can use them to make sure, because they don't lie to me, Kiran. They tell me the truth. They tell me
yes.
right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And if I can help you with your own personal protocol, contact me directly through the website, sarabantahealth.com. Happy to do that for you. And join the free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There's no downside. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. And my goal, as I mentioned, is to reach everyone on earth with eyes to see and ears to hear my message of healing. A lot of people don't want to hear me, and that's okay. But help me with that goal and share this podcast with a few of your friends who may need my help. Join us every week, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, and you can find all of the supplements we talked about, all of the gut supplements, the accelerated keto, the accelerated detox powder, the silver, everything we talked about at sarabantahealth.com. Use coupon WELCOME10 for 10% off site-wide. Thanks for joining us here, and have a great week.